The rain had been relentless that evening, one of those cold, persistent downpours that seemed to wash away everything, except the ache in people's hearts. The city glimmered in 1,000 shades of gray, its lights blurred by sheets of water. And inside his sleek black car, Ethan Ward, the man everyone called the Ice King of Wall Street, sat in silence, watching the world move past his tinted windows. He was a billionaire by every measure: wealth, power, reputation. But lately, none of it seemed to matter. The boardrooms, the numbers, the constant rush of deals. It all felt meaningless. He had everything except the one thing he couldn't buy: peace. As his car slowed near the old downtown crossing, something caught his attention. A woman standing alone under the flickering streetlight, soaked to the bone. Her hands trembled as she tried to hold an umbrella that had long given up against the wind. She wasn't begging. She wasn't even looking for help. She just stood there, eyes lost somewhere far beyond the storm. Ethan's driver glanced at him in the mirror. "Sir, should I keep going?" He hesitated. "Wait." The car stopped. For a few moments, Ethan didn't move. Something about her felt unsettlingly familiar. When she finally lifted her face, his chest tightened. Her eyes, those eyes. Deep brown, soft yet stormy. He had seen them before, years ago, in a place he'd long buried under ambition. Without thinking, he stepped out into the rain. The woman froze, clutching her coat around her swollen belly. Her lips parted slightly as he approached. She whispered something barely audible over the rain, but her voice trembled like a fragile melody from the past. "You don't remember me, do you?" Ethan's breath caught. He didn't know what to say. Something inside him stirred an echo of a memory, a name at the edge of recall. Should I?" he asked quietly, his voice more uncertain than he intended. She gave a small, broken laugh. "No, I didn't think so." Before he could speak again, her knees buckled. He lunged forward just in time to catch her, her cold body collapsing into his arms. Hey, stay with me," he said, panic breaking through his usual calm. He called out to his driver, "Open the door now." Minutes later, she was in the back seat, shivering. Ethan handed her his coat, noticing how thin her fingers looked wrapped around it. The car sped toward the nearest hospital. Inside the sterile white room, the scent of antiseptic filled the air. Ethan paced outside while the doctors examined her. His mind raced. Who was she? Why did her voice haunt him like a ghost from another life? When the doctor finally emerged, Ethan rushed forward. "How is she?" "She's stable," the doctor replied. "But she's severely dehydrated and exhausted. The baby's fine for now, but she needs rest, food, and no stress." Ethan nodded, relief flooding his chest. He peeked inside the room. She was asleep, strands of wet hair clinging to her pale skin. His coat draped over her shoulders. Something about her fragility drew him in. He didn't even know her name, yet he couldn't leave. Hours passed. When she woke, dawn had begun to lighten the sky. Her eyes fluttered open, confusion crossing her face as she noticed him sitting there. "You're still here?" she whispered. He smiled faintly. "You fainted in the street. I couldn't just leave you." She hesitated, then gave a small nod. "Thank you." "May I know your name?" he asked softly. She looked down at her hands. "I'm Lena." "Lena," he repeated slowly, as if tasting the word. It sounded familiar, painfully familiar. "Do we know each other?" For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, with tears gathering in her eyes, she whispered, "We used to, a long time ago, before you became who you are." Her words hung in the air like smoke, curling around memories he couldn't yet see. Ethan frowned. I don't understand. She turned her gaze toward the window. You wouldn't. You forgot the people you left behind when you chased your empire. Her tone wasn't angry, just tired, like someone who had carried a story alone for far too long. He leaned forward slightly. Lena, please, tell me. She gave a small, sad smile. You wouldn't remember, but once you were just a boy, with big dreams and kind eyes. You helped me when I had nothing. You promised you'd never change. Ethan's throat tightened. And I did. Yes, she said softly. You did. Silence fell again. The only sound was the steady beep of the heart monitor. Finally, Ethan asked, almost afraid of the answer. The baby? Is it? Lena shook her head before he could finish. No, you don't have to worry about that. He's gone. He froze. Who? My husband, she said quietly. He died 3 months ago. I had nowhere to go. The words hit him like a wave. All this time, he'd assumed she was some stranger in need of pity, but now guilt twisted in his chest. He remembered fragments her laughter, the way she used to draw in the margins of his notebooks back in college. Lena Hayes, the girl who believed in him before he believed in himself. He had loved her once, or something close to it, before ambition drowned everything human inside him. Lena, he whispered, his voice raw. I'm sorry. She looked at him, and for the first time, her eyes softened. It's too late for sorry, Ethan, but maybe not too late for kindness. The nurse entered, reminding them both of the world outside their fragile bubble. Lena lay back, exhausted, as Ethan rose to leave. I'll cover your hospital bills, he said quietly, and your stay until you're ready. She wanted to refuse, but when she met his eyes, she saw something different. Not the cold, unreachable man the newspapers wrote about, but the boy she once knew, glimpsing redemption through regret. As Ethan stepped out into the hallway, he exhaled deeply. For the first time in years, the storm outside didn't seem nearly as loud as the one inside his heart. For days after that night, Ethan couldn't focus. The markets moved, the phones rang, meetings continued, but his mind stayed in that hospital room. He visited Lena every morning, pretending it was out of responsibility. But deep down, he knew it was more than that. Each visit peeled back a layer of the person he had become. Lena spoke softly, never with bitterness, only quiet truth. She told him about the small town they'd both come from, the one he'd left behind without a word. How her parents lost their shop after a company buyout. His company, she said, without accusation. Ethan felt something break inside him. The empire he had built, the billions he controlled, it was all laid on the ruins of lives he never stopped to see. One afternoon, he walked into her room carrying a small box. These were in my old desk, he said. Inside were a few faded photographs, 2 young people smiling, arms around each other, a sketchbook with messy pencil drawings, and a coffee shop napkin with her handwriting on it. Don't forget who you are. Lena's eyes filled. You kept these? I thought I lost them, he said quietly. Maybe I just didn't want to remember. For a long moment, they sat in silence, the kind that says more than words ever could. Then Lena reached for his hand. You've spent years trying to prove yourself, Ethan. Maybe it's time to start forgiving yourself instead. He swallowed hard. And you? What will you do? I'll raise my child, she said, a gentle resolve in her voice. And maybe teach them that kindness is strength, not weakness. He nodded slowly. If you'll let me, I'd like to help. Lena gave him a small knowing smile. You already are. When she finally left the hospital weeks later, Ethan stood by the entrance as she stepped into the sunlight. Her baby bump was showing more now, her steps steadier. She turned to him one last time. Goodbye, Ethan. Goodbye, Lena, he whispered. And thank you. That evening, as the city lights came on, Ethan made a decision. He walked into his board meeting and announced a new initiative, a foundation to rebuild small businesses lost to corporate buyouts. His advisors called it irrational, sentimental, even reckless. But Ethan only smiled. For the first time, he didn't care about profit margins or headlines. He cared about people. Later that night, standing by his window, he thought about Lena, her voice, her courage, her reminder that even the most powerful hearts could be humbled by a whisper from the past. The rain began again outside, tapping softly against the glass. And for the first time in years, Ethan Ward smiled, not as the billionaire the world knew, but as the man he had finally found again.